What's up, everybody? Joe Brown here. This is the Heresy Financial Show, and today we are talking about the fact that we are starting to see violence spring up all over the world. I probably started talking about this maybe a year ago, maybe even before that eventually the inflation, the misallocation of resources in an economy, the supply chain issues, the shortages, all these things will cause violence. They've caused violence in the past. They've caused violence for history. Just look at the fall of Rome, and you can see that all of this intervention and leading to the massive mistakes and catastrophe and crisis, especially with food and energy, that it always causes, leads to massive civil unrest, leads to riots, leads to revolution, leads to violence. And we are just starting to see that in Peru. The Peru army has just been deployed to control violent protests that have been erupting given the inflation and food shortages. Ready? Let's dive in. All right, so as you can see, I'm currently traveling yet again. I'm in a hotel room, and I can't tell you exactly what for, but I'm kind of excited. In a month or two, I'll be able to tell you, doing some filming for a documentary series, and I will let you know about that once I can talk about it, give you some details. I'm kind of excited about it. Okay, so Peru, look at this article from Bloomberg. Peru has just deployed their army to control violent protests, and so we're seeing here because of these temporary food shortages, because of inflation, violence is erupting. Now, if you remember, the Arab Spring was started, many experts point back to the food shortages and the inflation. People could not get enough food, the energy problems, people could not get what they needed. And when you mess with people's basic needs, look at Maslow's hierarchy. When you go from people can't get luxury to people can't get regular goods, and then get down to the most basic needs, energy, clothing, food, shelter, water. When you have a massive amount of population that can't get that stuff, you end up with a loss of faith in the government, loss of faith in the rulers, loss of faith in the people who are supposed to be there bringing that stuff, who have made decisions that caused those problems in the first place, and then you have civil unrest. And we're seeing exactly that in Peru right now. The government has dispatched 95 army patrols to different locations around the country, especially the critical ones. Not only that, but we also see bus drivers began a strike earlier in the day, blocking highways. So when you see stuff like this going on, it's actually making the problem worse, because now you've got highways blocked, now you've got truckers and farmers interrupting the supply of food to the capital. And part of the reason for this is because the people who are at the top usually still get what they need. It's the vast majority of people at the bottom of the pyramid. If you ever read Animal Farm, if you haven't read Animal Farm by Orwell, you need to go read that book right now. That's an absolutely fantastic book, and talks about, the famous line is in that book is that everybody is equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And then the last line of that book is the absolute best line in I think of any book in any literature. It says the animals looked at the pigs and then looked back to the humans, looked back to the pigs and back to the humans, and they could no longer tell which was which. The premise of the story is that there was a revolution. They kicked the humans out and the pigs ruled and said, we're going to have communist socialism, and it's all going to be great. We're all going to share and everything. And turned out that the people in charge, the pigs, ended up being a lot worse than the humans. So anyway, that's what's going on, is that the people at the top always get what they need. It always goes to them first, and as they distribute it out, then the people who are kind of at the bottom of the pyramid don't get what they need. And so you have situations like this where truckers and farmers interrupt the supply of food to the capital and try and cause pain to the people who cause the issues in the first place. Now, the reason why this is important is because we're going to see more and more of this, most likely. Policymakers around the world have all, by and large, made the same choices by printing money to the moon, giving most of it to organizations in their own government and large corporations, giving a small amount of it to people. The massive inflation that resulted as a result of that money working its way throughout the economy, causing the spike in demand without a corresponding spike in an increase in goods and services, causing shortages, causing bottlenecks to show up in supply chains. All these problems we can trace back to the money printer. And so we are seeing this kind of thing happen, and it's possible that we see things like this happen in our own country, near our own homes. So these are things you want to be prepared for. I don't think that we're going to see, a lot of things in developing countries. You see, militaries deployed. You see martial law. In my opinion, we're probably not going to see anything like that anytime soon in countries like the United States, Canada, UK, things like that. It's possible. At this point, it doesn't look like it's getting that bad yet. But we could definitely get to a point where there are rations on certain types of food. We could definitely get to the point where there are curfews. We saw curfews over the last 2 years in certain cities and states and certain countries that are not just like third world developing countries, like in Canada and Australia. And so it's definitely possible you see things like this. You see shortages, you see supplies run out of things again. We're seeing supply chains are impacted right now. We're seeing a lot of ships build up at ports in, I think Shanghai went from like 100 to 300 recently because of their new COVID lockdowns. So we're seeing all sorts of things that make it look like, hey, this is not coming to an end anytime soon. These problems are going to persist. One very easy thing to do is stock up on some emergency food. I've got a link for beprepared.com in the description of this video to buy some simple emergency food. It'll last on the shelf for 25 years. You have some meat in there just in case you go to the store, you can't get what you need. Well, now you've got it in the closet at home. Another thing to do is invest in agriculture, invest in energy, invest in some of these things that while the supply is not growing, they're benefiting from the increased profits. And you can even invest in like agricultural ETFs, really simply in an IRA, a 401k, anything like that, to give yourself a little bit of a hedge against some of these things that are happening right now. And so those are some simple solutions, but in any case, keep a lookout. And as always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. You have a great day.